Welcome to the Billionaire Mindset, your 30-day journey to thinking like a billionaire. Now you can just watch this video, or if you want to sign up for the entire series for free and get the bonus PDF companion calendar, check the link in the description below. Today is day 29, and we're going to learn how billionaires think about risk. Enjoy.
I seem to have a high innate drive, and that's been true even since I was a little kid. You know, I really had a very strong drive. Did all sorts of risky things when I was a kid that why did I do those things? They're crazy. I wouldn't say I'm fearless. In fact, I think I feel fear quite strongly. But if what we're doing is if what I'm doing is I think is important enough, then I just override the fear. Mm-hmm. So, but it's not as though I don't feel. I feel it like more strongly than I would like.
And in which areas would you never go full risk if you still are fearful?
Well, it really depends on the stakes. If the stakes are high, if it's really important, then I will overcome the fear and just do it anyway. Mm-hmm. But essentially, I just drive overrides fear, but I feel the fear. It's kind of annoying. I wish I didn't. Okay. I wish I felt it less.
Which company you founded was the most risky at the start?
Well, probably SpaceX. I thought it had the lowest chance of success. I thought both Tesla and SpaceX would fail at the beginning.
You thought?
Yeah, sure.
Really?
Of course.
But nevertheless, you put all your money in that, in both.
I expected to lose it. Well, technically, what I thought was, well, I'll take half the money from PayPal, and if I lose half of it, that's okay. But then, of course, the companies encounter difficulties, and then I have a choice of either let the company die, or put all the money into the companies. And so I really didn't want the companies to die, so I put all the money in the companies. Yeah. And then I had to borrow money from friends to pay living expenses. 2008 in particular was awful because we had the third launch failure in a row of our Falcon 1 vehicle at SpaceX. The Tesla financing round that we were raising fell apart because the economy was going to tailspin. And it's pretty hard to raise money for a startup car company, late 2008 when GM and Chrysler are busy going bankrupt. Mm-hmm. That was tough. And then Solar City had to deal with Morgan Stanley, and Morgan Stanley had to renege on the deal because they themselves were running out of money. So it looked like all three companies were going to die. Mm-hmm. And I was also going through a divorce. So that was definitely a low point.
So it's 2008, you're going through a divorce, which some, to borrow your word, douchebag bloggers are writing about to make even worse. Right.
Yes, that's true. In addition to all that stuff happening, I was getting dumped on massively in the press.
Right. Yeah. It looks like all three companies are going to fail. Why do you keep going with all three? I feel like even a lot of great entrepreneurs in that situation would have been I've already sunk everything I have in these companies, and I got to pick one. But you didn't. You kept doing all three. Why? That was a very tough call. At the end of 2008, that was probably one of the toughest calls I've had to make, because I could either reserve capital for one company or the other. Fortunately, Solar City didn't need a ton of capital, so they were okay. But between SpaceX and Tesla, it's sort of like if you've got two kids, and what do? Do you spend all your money to maximize the probability of success of one, or do you try to keep both alive? Fortunately, it worked.
One of the most difficult choices I've ever faced in life was in 2008. I think I had maybe $30 million left, or $30 or $40 million left in 2008. And I had two choices. I could put it all into one company, and then the other company would definitely die, or split it between the two companies. But if I split it between two companies, then both might die. And when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, and building something, it's like a child. And so it's like, which one am I going to let one starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I split the money between the two. Fortunately, thank goodness, they both came through.
You started with a much smaller rocket, the Falcon 1. And was your goal at that point, when you started with Falcon 1, to get to the point where we had 9 engines for Falcon 9? Was that your goal at that time?
When I started SpaceX, I only thought there was maybe a 10% chance of getting Falcon 1 to orbit. I did not at all think that this would happen. So this is for sure a dream come true. But I literally at the time I didn't know anything about rockets, and I was, I've been the chief engineer of SpaceX since day one, and I don't really know anything about rockets, which is why the first 3 rockets failed.
Right.
And then
so the first 3 Falcon 1s for SpaceX were failures.
Yes.
And then tell me about the 4th one.
The 4th one, so I'd actually only had enough money for 3 flights. So I had no more money left, but we managed the team sort of rallied, and we managed to put together enough spare parts to do a 4th launch, and that 4th launch was successful. And then
so what would have happened if it wasn't successful?
Oh, well, SpaceX would have died.
So we would not be here right now, at this moment, getting ready to launch Crew Dragon to the International System.
In a world that's changing so quickly, the biggest risk you can take is not taking any risk. And I really think that that's true, right? I mean, a lot of people, I think that, whenever it comes to, whenever you get yourself into a position where you have to make some big shift in direction or do something, there are always, people are going to point to the downside risks of that decision. And locally, they're maybe right? I mean, for any given decision that you're going to make, there's upside and downside. But in aggregate, if you are stagnant and you don't make those changes, then I think you're guaranteed to fail, right? And not catch up. So to some degree, I think it's really right that over time, the biggest risk that you can take is to not take any risks.
Many of our parents had stable jobs throughout their careers, but in our generation, we're all a little entrepreneurial, whether we're starting our own projects or finding our role in another one. And, that's great, because our culture of entrepreneurship is how we create so much progress. An entrepreneurial culture thrives when it is easy to try lots of new ideas. Facebook wasn't the first thing I built. I also built chat systems and games, study tools and music players, and I'm not alone. J.K. Rowling got rejected 12 times before she finally wrote and published Harry Potter. Even Beyoncé had to make hundreds of songs to get Halo. The greatest successes come from having the freedom to fail.
Do you think entrepreneurship is for everybody?
No.
And why?
I don't. I think you have to be, I'd say the key mindset is the ability to take risk and be comfortable with taking risk. A lot of people, I find that the difference between doing it and not doing it is a lot of time it comes down to risk. When you do something, there are so many unknowns, you have to be comfortable with that. And you have to be comfortable with the fact that there's a really high probability that you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Most people just aren't comfortable, thinking about, imagine this, somebody comes to you and says, listen, I want you to absolutely dedicate your entire life, kill yourself, give up family, friends, everything. And there's a good chance it's not gonna work. It's that's a tough sell.
Yeah.
That's a tough sell for most people.
Do you think
it's the combination of both?
Talk to me about risk. To the young guy out there, how do you take risk? How do you decide, okay, I'm gonna go for it. This is worth it. How do you weigh the pros and cons of whatever's coming up?
Yeah, I look for opportunities where their risk means a low probability of success. Basically, that's what I would kind of bucket. If you said, well, it's risky, it's a low probability of success, but you need to make sure that it's a low probability of success. But if it is successful, it's orders of magnitude bigger returns. So for example, you have a 10% shot, you invest $100 and you have a 10% shot, the 100 becomes $1 million. That's a bet you want to take, right? Because 1 in 10, 100 becomes $1 million. Do that over and over again. Look for opportunities like that. It doesn't make sense to take a risk you have a 10% shot of success and $100 becomes $1,000, you're not going to, that's not going to work out in the long term. So find bets that have a high expected value where the outcomes are outsized relative to the risk. Find those opportunities and then be prepared to take them over and over again. Because if you take those shots 10 times and 10%, there's a good chance one of those will work out and then you hit the $1 million outcome. You have to be prepared to go in, give it everything you've got. If it fails, get back up, find another opportunity. Mm-hmm. And for me, fortunately, within each one of my companies, if I continued to go down the path I was going, it would have been a failure. But I saw an opportunity to take yet another 10% shot in the existing company. And I did it a few times, failed, took the shot, failed, took the shot, failed, and then it worked. So all 4 companies, fortunately for me, worked out, but there were failures inside of each one of them that could have blown up if I wasn't prepared to get back up and go at it again.
A Fiat X19 that had a hole in the floorboard. I mean, you could tell I was living the high life, right? I mean, and I was putting in oil every 60 miles and, working as a bartender at night. What did I have to lose? Right. And so it wasn't like, oh man, I could lose all this. And so, and so it was just like, you just go for it. Right. Now, later on, after I'd had some success and we got back and we started AudioNet, which turned into broadcast.com, the math was different. The equations, the calculus was different. It was like, okay, I'm investing a lot of my saved money into this whole idea of netcasting, right? Or internet broadcasting in early 1995 when people didn't even know what the internet was. That was all risk because I literally was putting everything that I had on the line for something. People just laughed at me and said, wait, audio over the internet. You can turn on the radio. You can turn on the TV. Yeah, but you don't get it. No, that's just dumb, all right? And so being able to overcome all that resistance, because remember back then, A, you had to have a PC. B, you had to know what a modem was and install it. C, you had to know what the internet was, and then you had to download a TCP/IP client that worked over a modem and then connected to a browser that you probably didn't even know what it was or how to download it. And we had to take it on faith that all this was going to grow.
There's part of you that either wants to create a business or you obviously already have created a business. The hardest part is taking that first step. Right? There's always that line, like I was talking about earlier, that you have to take a step past. But the thing, people always say, well, you're not afraid to start a business. Why aren't you? It's terrifying, or, it scares me to do it. And my attitude has always been, if you're prepared, it's not a risk. Right? Bobby Knight, who was the coach at Indiana University, used to say, everybody's got the will to win, but it's only those with the will to prepare that do win. And the same applies to business. We've all seen our friends go out there and just wing it. It's my passion. We're all passionate about something. I'm passionate about basketball. It doesn't make me an NBA player, right? It's not just about passion. It's not just about saying I'm doing it. It's not even about incorporating. It's not about the idea. It's about, are you prepared and are you willing to do the work?
Urgency that I felt that if we didn't get Microsoft going right away, that somebody would do a great job building a software company, we won't have a chance. That probably ended up not being true, that I could have waited 2 or 3 years and the opportunity to do Microsoft still would be there. But anyway, I felt a sense of urgency. And it's not like, I still get to take courses and learn things today, things like The Learning Company, and there's all sorts of great books. So it's not like I've missed some part of my education.
Right. When you dropped out, your father and mother said, are you sure you know what you want to do? If one of your children dropped out of college to start a company, what would you say?
Well, I'd have to say yes, but the dropping out is not an irrevocable decision. If you try and start a company that doesn't go well, they always let you go back. Okay. And so if you don't have, kids that you need to support, it's a very low risk thing, particularly in the culture of the United States, where trying to start something and failing is not a black mark for the rest of your life. Oh. Part of the thing that drives computer science forward is doing risky things, having a long-term time horizon. And when Microsoft was a small company, we benefited from the fact that AT&T and Xerox and other companies had made investments in research, that they'd reached out and worked with universities on a broad basis. So we felt very lucky that as we got to a certain level of success, we could start our own research group and have that research group be in partnership with top universities all over the world doing advanced programs, things that range from the work on speech recognition all the way up to quantum computing. We have a fairly serious program that has a high risk of failure, which makes it fun and interesting, on quantum computing. And even in the best case, it's probably a decade away before that makes a difference. But that's the kind of thing that when it works can have incredibly high payoff.
Being an entrepreneur is about taking risks, but it's about taking very calculated risks and being, protecting the downside. So I didn't quit my job selling fax machines until I had already invented the product. I was working on it at night and on the weekends for 2 years. I was driving around North Carolina where most hosiery was made, begging a bunch of manufacturing plants to help make it. And I didn't quit my job until I had already landed Neiman Marcus, Saks Fifth Avenue, and got a call from Oprah.
Just a typical day.
Then I was like, okay, I feel confident to quit, but I needed the income that was coming in and I needed my healthcare benefits. And I was working out of my apartment in Virginia Highlands and I ran Spanx out of my apartment for 2.5 years. And it was crazy. I mean, I had semi-trucks pulling up twice a week to this apartment and my neighbors were like, what's happening? What's going on? But I was so conservative with my finances in the beginning. I was very scrappy and still am really scrappy.
One of the things when I really sit and think, why am I comfortable taking risks? What is it?
Yeah, where's it come from?
I was really lucky when I was growing up. My dad used to actually encourage my brother and me to fail. And so I would come home and sit at the dinner table and he would say, Sarah, what did you fail at this week? And if I didn't have something, he would actually be disappointed. And I can vividly remember coming home and saying, Dad, I tried out for this and I was horrible. And he would high five me. And what I didn't realize
that is so awesome.
I didn't realize it at the time, but he was teaching us that failure is not trying versus the outcome. And so with Spanx and everyone saying it was such a bad idea initially, and I feel like I feel much freer to be willing to fail in the traditional sense because I'm not focused on the end result. And the more, it's like working a muscle. The more you're willing to risk something and maybe fail, you realize there's always a really awesome hidden gift in it.
Exactly.
It's either you meet someone new that brings you to a different place in your life, or you learn something new, and so I always was really excited by how my life grew by every risk I took.
When I started my business in 1995, it was very difficult. I had an idea. I invited 24 of my friends in my apartment because that year I went to Seattle, my first trip to the USA. In Seattle, I discovered internet. And I think this thing in the future may change the world. So
Tell me about the encounter with the internet when you first saw it.
Yeah, I went to the Seattle, and a friend of mine, he had a small office with like 4 or 5 computers. I never touched computer in my life before because computer was so expensive to me and so complicated. But my friend said, this is internet. Just to type in whatever word you want to type. I said, no, too expensive. I don't know which one to do. Even now, I don't know how a computer works. So he said, Jack, it's not a bomb, just to type whatever. So the first word I typed in was beer. B-E-R, beer. I don't drink, I don't know why I typed beer. I found American beer, German beer, Japanese beer, no China. So I typed the word China. There's no information about China. So I say, what if we can make some China information on the internet? Let people know about China. So that was the idea. So I came back to China and say, I want to resign from my school.
You were a teacher?
I was a teacher. I've been teaching in the university for 6 years. So I said, I want to do it. I invite 24 of my friends to my apartment. After 2 hours of explaining what I'm going to do, internet, and 23 of them say, forget it. He said, this thing never worked because there's no such thing called internet in the world. You know nothing about a computer, so why you want to do this? And only one people He said, Jack, if you want to try it, just to try it. But if there's something wrong, just come back. And after a whole night thinking, I say, I still want to do it. Because most of the people, they have a fancy ideas in the evening, but in the day, when they wake up in the evening or in the morning, they go back to do the same job. We have to do something different. So from there, I started my business borrowing $2,000 from my relatives and friends. So that was my trip. I call myself like a blind man riding on the back of blind tigers. And those people who are expert of riding horses, they all fall down, and I'm still surviving.
You're doing very well out there. You're now living in San Francisco area. You're making a big success. You're by investment banking standards. I presume you're, highly compensated, so forth. What propelled you to say, I'm going to give all this up and go start my own company?
Right. So the interesting thing that occurred, as again, as an engineer, I realized way back in my Goodyear and Tire and Rubber days, the impact that software really had on businesses. The thing that I noticed that there's very few software companies were actually efficiently run. Well, why? The big part was most executives who started software companies, well, they wrote code or they knew a market opportunity and they sold the code. There was never anyone who taught them how to run software companies. So I then run into this small company, I'll say small, in Houston, Texas, that is the most efficient software company I've ever seen. They had some very basic things that they just did extremely well. And I said, wow, if you took those basic things and actually applied them ultimately to other enterprise software companies, you could run those businesses very similar to the way they ran theirs and would create tremendous value in those companies. That was the idea. That was the conceit.
And they said, that's a good idea. Why don't you do it?
Well, yeah, in essence. I said, well, if you actually thought about taking some of these best practices and putting them, buying enterprise software companies and driving them forward, you could actually do pretty well. And I said, that's a great idea. Would you do that? And I said, well, and they gave me one of those offers that looked quite interesting. And I remember my lawyer said, this is a bad deal, Robert, but you should take it.
Right. So you went to Goldman and said, I'm leaving.
Right.
Did they try to talk you out of it? I presume they did.
Of course. They made the pitch against it. But, like all things, David, at some point in time in your life, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, you have to take a little risk and go see if this is something
How
that's
old
gonna
were you
work.
when you took this?
I was 39 years old.
Okay.
And it's so interesting. So, of course, I started doing research. I was the same age that others left what they were doing to go start their businesses. So I said, well, let's go give it a run.
DC, we had a really interesting situation. We went there. By the way, we were, as far as we could tell, we were totally legal, white glove legal. Nicest laws in the country in terms of sedans in DC. But DC taxi commissioner goes out there and says, Uber's not legal because they charge by time and distance. And let's just say that was real. Why is charging by distance evil? I don't understand. I don't get it. But he said, look, you're charging by time and distance, you're not allowed. Well, we looked at the law. The law says sedan, a for-hire vehicle designed to carry fewer than 6 passengers, which charges for service on the basis of time and mileage. We're like, what are you talking about? It's going in public forums, Washington Post, etc. We go to the Attorney General in the District of Columbia, and that's what he tells us. So, when you read about the crazy stuff we're doing in the cities, and I've got to close this down because somebody's going to have the hook and they're going to take me off here. But when you read about the crazy stuff that we're doing in the cities, know that it is corrupt out there. Know that we are highly, highly disruptive, and what you read in the papers isn't always true. And the bottom line is that in order to be in this business, in order to be this disruptive to what's going on, you have to be willing to fight, and you have to not be, you can't be shy. So that gives you a little bit about it. Basically, they tried to put a floor on our prices. I'll leave it at this last one here. They put a floor on our prices, or tried to pass what they call the Uber amendment, make our prices 5 times that of a taxi. They rolled the amendment out July 10th. It was a Monday, July 9th. The vote on the bill was the 10th, They put the bill out on the 9th, that was a Monday at 4 p.m. to vote on at 11 a.m. the next day, 18 hours, most of which are going to be sleeping. I wrote an email to our consumers letting them know that they were about to do this. And by the way, the rationale was to ensure that basically we don't compete. If a CEO of a company said something like this, they'd be in jail. But if you corrupt your politicians and then push those laws down, it's totally legal. Anyways, we did something called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Uberness. Uber DC Love was the hashtag. 18 hours later, we had 50,000 original emails. These weren't robo-emails that went to city council people telling them not to vote for it. 37,000 tweets, 104 million social media impressions, and we won. And as you might imagine, there wasn't a lot of sleep during that time, but it was so short it maybe didn't matter.
You will have many opportunities to reinvent yourself, and so so I think it's worthwhile taking risks and trying to do something you're really excited by. And if the first attempt you don't do it, you can try again, and things tend to work out in the long run. In Silicon Valley, part of the reason so many people start up a company is, starting up a company and even having failed, you can wear it like a badge of honor, right? And I think that's important. Culturally, risk is rewarded. I remember when I started working at Google, if I went and people were discussing ideas, the other people who heard the ideas try to build on those ideas. They encourage you. So it's a culture of optimism. It's a culture of risk-taking, and I think that's really important. Being in the US, I find people take a remarkably varied number of paths, and so I do think it's important to follow your dream and do something which you're excited by. So I think if you follow your heart and do what you like, you will always do much better. And so I don't think it matters that you're an engineer or you're in science, or it could be in any field.
As a business grows, the natural tendency would be to take fewer risks and to be cautious and to have contingency plans. But in a business that's changing very quickly, or one that you want to grow, you actually need to be explicit about accepting risk. One of the people who work with me kind of described it this way. I was sort of encouraging this person, hey, let's try this. Why don't we do this? How about this? And at some point he kind of came back and said, so what you're telling me is you want me to try to do 10 things, and if I only get 8 of them, you'll be okay with that. If I don't get all 10, versus having 5 things and doing all 5 perfectly. That's exactly right. We want to accept some experiments.
We have our own jargon to some extent. Like, for example, somebody comes to me with a project or a product that we're going to go sell, or some project. I ask them, is it slam dunk? And no, it's really good. I said, no, is it slam dunk? So, but it's a good product. And what it does is it totally clarifies their mind that, oh no, it's not slam dunk. Then I say, well, why are we going to do it? So our standards are high. We have these simple things which clarify the mind, not totally, mess up your mind, or have so much jargon that nobody knows what you're talking about. But yeah, you got all the right words, like ecosystem, whatever, everybody's got ecosystems here, or value propositions. No, guys, just sell good stuff to people who need it, So all of that jargon, all it does is bury common sense. So the idea is you get simple. Somebody asked me, in the interview, I said, what does an entrepreneur really need? So I said, only 2 things: common sense and a sense of urgency. That's it. And they asked me, who should we learn this stuff for? And my answer was, from your mom. Because she's probably done more management than your MBA professor. Because she's got a budget, she's got all these kids running around, hard to manage. All of this thing has to be done every day, 7 days a week. Now that's work. That's hard work. That's learning on the job. And people say, oh, she's just a homemaker. That's like a lowly thing. No, it's not. That's great media, and people say, oh no, you're saying, oh, women should be homemakers. No, that's the hardest work there is. It's the most talent you need. Us, the guys go out there and work 8 hours. Any idiot can do that. So It's sort of thinking based on description. In other words, if you look at any word and you really think about it, then you understand it. Otherwise, you just use these words that everybody uses, and they think, okay, now this guy must know something. After all, he knows what an ecosystem is. So our approach to things, like I said, is different. You may agree with it. I'm sure I'm going to get some MBA professor to. I mean, one time the U of M, University of Michigan Law School, called me to speak. I said, "You guys kidding?" So I said, I think of MBAs. I think it's totally useless. So he said, no, come over. So I said, fine. That's what you want. So I went over there and kind of defined it. I said, look, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't teach anything of value. I mean, I think they teach this much that is useful. Then teach this much that is useless. And then they teach this much that's harmful. Yeah. So overall, averages on the useless side. Because you come out of school and you actually think you know something? Really? And that's dangerous because you really don't. So I never hire people out of fancy schools for that reason. My first question usually is to an MBA, how are you going to get over it? So, and I'm really not alone in this. The good guys I've met, the chief executives I've met of really large companies that are, that don't, usually they get in front of the podium and it's all PC, lawyer cleared stuff, so they don't say anything. But the good guys that I've met, they're all sick of MBAs, really. They're not really enamored of this whole thing because, look, it's a simple thing. If you're going to learn plumbing, go learn from a plumber that's actually seen a pipe, has fixed a leak, not just written about pipes and lectured on pipes and researched pipes. So I'm not for theoretical plumbers.
The average person who's listening, too many people think that they can go into this very difficult zero-sum game of betting against the consensus and be right. You know what I mean? In other words, investor says, I'm going to go in the markets, I'm going to make money.
Betting against the consensus and be right.
Right, because the consensus is built into the price. Okay? That's what's the, so think of it as like going to a horse race and there's handicaps. Okay? You're not going to pick the best horse and you're not going to pick the best company. A terrible company can be a better investment than a terrific company. A terrible company could be a better investment, just like the terrible horse can be a better investment because the odds that are changing, like you go into that and that becomes the long shot. But because the long shot is going to pay off 25-1, right? If he comes in, that you could just as likely bet on the long shot as the leader, and it's going to be equally likely that you're going to make money, right? Otherwise the market would be doing the opposite. Well, the market is like that, right? In other words, if everybody believes that something's going to be terrific, okay, then everybody's betting on it, and its price is high. So it's not what's best necessarily. It's what's best relative to what's in the price, what's discounted.
The chain store bug had already bitten me.
Right.
And it wasn't long. As soon as I could afford it all, I started casting around for another location. And where was that? Fayetteville on the square? It was that little 18-foot store.
Shotgun, 1952.
1952. We got the store at Fayetteville started, didn't we?
Right.
And it became very successful. So then one day I got a call from Ben Franklin, and they said, hey, we got a store in Kansas City. And you remember the story?
I certainly do.
And I thought, well, if I've got to go to Kansas City, I've got to get me an airplane. And I had never flown.
Probably first looked at it in 53, I'd say. And this was our first venture in a shopping center.
Yeah, and there were practically no shopping centers in 1953.
That's true. That's exactly right. And this was something entirely new and different, and everybody was skittish of it.
Yeah, no one else wanted the franchise,
That's
really.
Right.
Another one of those situations.
Right.
And Bud said, well, I'll take half of it. I think I can put enough money together to get half of it. I said, well, if you can, I'll try to do my part. And we'll go up there and we'll just take another gamble.
Sure right, and it was a gamble. It was out 20 miles from the Kansas city limits. Time we got the store open, why it was a winner from the day we opened.
I mean, it was the best profit store. I know one year it made $30,000, which to us was more money than we'd ever heard or ever dreamed about being able to make out of one store.
I saw a video you posted the other day about millionaires are broke or something on Instagram. Well, I can't remember exactly what it was. Like, never take advice from a
Never take advice from a millionaire. And the reason why is because, you know, millionaires they're not certain about their money yet. They're scared, actually. I mean, if you ask them, just go ask them, hey, what got you $1 million? I was out there hustling, working deals, da-da-da. Then when you got $1 million, what happened? You start worrying about losing it. What do I do with this money? And you start saving it and protecting it. You were taking risks when you had nothing. Mm-hmm. You took a risk when you had nothing. You took risk when you had 100. Took risk when you had 300. Then you quit taking risks at $1 million. So that's why I say never take advice from a millionaire, because they go into conservation mode. Yeah. The billionaire never goes into conservation mode. Like all the way up, he's just like expansion. Look at Elon. Yeah. Sells PayPal, walks away with $3 billion.
Puts it all in a
bang, 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 and rents.
Right.
Rents where he lives. Borrowed money to rent.
Yeah.
Shoved it all in.
It's crazy.
Millionaire would never do that.
Why?
Takes all his chips off the table. And then looks at his chips and he's scared he's going to lose them again.
What's your attitude to fear and risk?
Yeah, you got to take risks. The best way to stay out of harm's way is to be the most dangerous person in the room.
Right. I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Do you ever, though, sometimes think, man, I'm taking too big a risk here?
Every deal I do.
Yeah.
Every deal I do.
Does it make you feel alive?
No, I know I'm alive. I just you know, like when you take on an arena and you're like, I'm going to book, there's 5,000 people here. Okay. My gig had 7 times that many people. 35,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, I sold out an arena as big as Jay-Z and Beyonce would sell out. The difference is I had them there for 3 days. They have them there for 2 hours. On Super Bowl weekend, our biggest football, you know. You guys laugh at our football, but we love it, right? So the biggest sports weekend in the United States of America is Super Bowl weekend. I held my event on that weekend. Freaking insane. So I'm just going to look it up just so I don't.
Of Entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? You ever looked it up?
I kind of know intuitively
what it means.
What do you think it means? Someone who starts businesses and, you know.
Person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on, listen, but this is the important part. This is good for your young viewer. Taking on greater than normal financial risk in order to do so. By definition, the second half of that, most people are not entrepreneurs because they never take on any risk. Like they're holding on to their money. They got cash in the banks. They got equity in their houses. They're saving money, saving for retirement. If you're doing any of that,
versus putting the balls against the wall, right?
You're like, what are you doing, dude? You're more committed. People are more committed to the equity in their home than they are to the equity of their brand or business. So I made this mistake for years.
In your own life.
Yeah. You must operate, okay? You must operate like your life depends on it. Okay, life threatening, life threatened. I operate best when I am under a threat. Time threat, financial threat, threat to lose something. There's got to be a loss for you to stay on your game. This is why I tell so many people, get your money out of the bank and get it back into the marketplace. Do not have cash sitting in the bank. Cash in the bank is exactly what your mom and daddy told you it was. It is an emergency, a security blanket. Why Johnny has money in the wall of his house is because he first had this idea, I'm gonna put money there to avoid the IR and the S. And number 2, I'm gonna have it there just in case I need it. I go get me a little 2 inches or whatever I need of it, okay? Johnny's gotta get that money out of the wall, out of the bank, okay, and back into the system so it pays him.
Today I want to talk to you about financial offense. Financial offense. I just finished watching Brazil beat Costa Rica. 7 minutes into the deal, I'm like, there's no way Costa Rica wins this, okay? 48 minutes, it's going to be impossible. It was still 0-0. It will be impossible for Costa Rica to win, even though the refs, and by the way, this is all about life right here, right now. Even though the refs were making consistently bad calls against Brazil, I knew that Costa Rica would win. How do I know that? Even though the calls were bad. Okay? Literally 90 minutes into the game, I am still confident. I think it was 88 minutes into the game. 0-0, I become more and more confident that Brazil will beat Costa Rica. The score ended up 2-0 Brazil. Why was I right? Because Brazil was on offense the entire game. So I know a lot of you guys in America don't like hockey or soccer because you're like, dude, it's just too slow, dude. It's too slow. Dude, the game's unbelievable. Okay? Terrible game if you're not on offense. Same thing with money. If you want money, you have to get on offense, okay? I was brought up to stay on defense in my finances. If you play defense and finances, not only will you never have money, even if you did have it, you would be one of those people that nobody likes. You don't want to be that guy. Why is it? By the way, I was that guy. And every time I come to you and talk to you and share with you a show, anytime I'm talking to you about anything, anytime any of you see me slamming on somebody, if you think I'm talking about somebody else, you're wrong. It's always me I'm talking about. I only share experiences I've had. I was that guy. Okay, I was the mooch. What do you call him again? Tacaño. Tacaño, cheap bastard. I was that guy for 20 years because I was playing defense with my finances. I was brought up to play defenses with my finances. My mother taught me to play defense with my finances. You know why? Because she did not know how to play offense. I was watching an old Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran fight. It was the third time they met. Roberto Duran, the entire fight, all 12 rounds, was doing nothing but playing defense. You cannot win a boxing match if you're not on offense. You cannot win a soccer game if you're not on offense. And you will not win the finance game playing defense. What does defense look like to this guy? This guy's saving money. Okay? He won't spend money. He probably measures ROI on everything. He looks at everything from what's the return going to be? What's the deal going to be? These are mistakes, by the way. I'm going to spend 3 hours talking about this in Miami next Friday, live, right here in Miami. I'm going to spend 3 hours talking about how do you get out of this mooch mode. What do you call it again? Tacaña. How do you get out of the tacaña mode? Out of mooch mode, out of defense mode, okay? The Millionaire Next Door, the book Millionaire Next Door, literally misguided hundreds of millions of people. Save your way to being a millionaire. Folks, you don't want to be a millionaire, okay? And you don't want to save your way to get there, because the millionaire that saves their money and won't spend their money is not even using money for the very purpose it was created. Money is to be used, not stored. Okay? The reason I'm having financial success in my life today is not because I play defense, but because I spend my time on offense. I wake up in the morning with a goal. Hey, what is my financial target today? 2. The rest of the day I spend saying, who's got my money? I spend all my time saying, who's got my money? Who's got my money? And the third thing I do is I invest my money. Okay? We have 7 businesses here today. I have one of these 7 businesses that will make me more money for the next 100 years than the other 6 combined did in their entire career. Why? Because it's indestructible wealth. So you got to have a goal. That's offense, right? I'm trying to get the ball in the net. If I'm trying to get the ball in the net, I can't play defense. I need to move the ball to the other side of the field and kick into the net. Brazil had 16 attempts on a net. Costa Rica had 1 attempt. You can't win playing defense. You have to kick, which means you got to go for it. You got to use money, okay? So you need a goal. Then you need to go, hey man, how do I use money to get money? How do I get some money from somebody and use that money to then invest in something that will reproduce money? When you take money and put it in the bank, you know what it produces? Nothing. If you're down to cutting corners to make sense of something, don't buy it. If you're having to lease something for extra 12 months to afford it, it's the wrong thing to do, okay? Quit doing it. Like, I don't put my money in anything that doesn't make money. I'll tell you right now. If it doesn't make me money, if it doesn't have the potential to get me a score, I'm not running the ball down the field. I don't lose money, man, okay? Look, I go out and I don't lose time either. I go to the marketplace to get money. I have a goal every day, okay? I have a goal monthly. I have a goal annually. I have a goal over my lifetime. If I want to do the math on something, I do the math, okay? I've done this my whole life. I did it on 100 grand. I did it on 1 million, my first million. I did it on 100 million. Okay? And now I'm doing it, since I've accomplished these, I'm gonna do it on 1 billion. This is how you set goals. The goal is this, man, I wanna make $1 billion. How many people do I need to contact on the planet? First, a goal, an achievable goal. Is it achievable? So then I do the math. I'm like, wait a minute, man, how could I do it? Oh, if 10,000 people, if 100,000 people, how many is it? Yeah, if 100,000 people gave me $10,000, I would have $1 billion. Now the question is, now that I got the billion, how do I keep it? And how do I not go to jail? Like you can't just take people's money and not give them something back. Oh wow, what could I invest in so I don't lose the money? I don't want to lose the money, so I need to put the money in something where it's not at risk, where I'm not speculating, where I don't lose my reputation. My dad used to tell me, son, if you want to have good things in life, never ruin one thing, your reputation. Once you ruin your reputation, man, you're going to spend all your time and energy and money trying to fix your reputation. So you guys see me every day. Everything I do is out there in the open, wide open. I buy a plane, you get to see it. I buy an office building, you get to see it. I'm buying this office right now. Anything you see with me, with my kids, with my money, a conference, this isn't make-believe. This is real, okay? I showed you, how do I make 100 grand when I'm broke? How do I make $100,000? Oh, I need 1,000 people to give me $100. I need to get people to know me, okay? You see, what you guys do is y'all go, I gotta get an app. I gotta build an app. My friend over, the barber over here, Javier, I gotta build an app, I'm gonna build an app. Dude, you don't need to build anything. You need to go talk to people. That's why I go to conferences. That's why I do conferences. That's why we're about to take 10X Growth Conference to all major cities in the United States. Why? Because I wanna meet you guys. You guys come up to me and you're like, can I take a photo? Please take a photo with me. I want the photo, man. I need to meet you guys. I want to meet you. Why do you think I opened the fun up? Because I want to meet people. My name's Grant Cardone. You are in the Cardone zone, where I wake you up, I shake you up, I punch you in the face, but mostly, I'm that good uncle.
Now, I was doing a meeting at the Book Expo last week, and there was a guy with me. His name's Ryan Coogler, and we just met McGraw-Hill about my book. And I'm like, hey, look, I'd like you to take a look at the book. Now, I don't think McGraw-Hill is going to talk to me about my book, but I'm going to take a shot, pitch the deal, show up, right? The guy's like, no problem, send it to me Tuesday. I'll take a look at it. I like this. Okay? And I'm like, good. I go back to my little iPhone, my BlackBerry, whatever it is, right? And I start texting a message. Ryan says, what are you doing? I said, I'm emailing the guy right now. He's like, Grant, you left the guy 30 seconds ago. I said, yeah, I know, I'm emailing him right now, man. I want to follow him up, man. He said, well, you said, it's too soon, Grant, can't do it. It's not going to look professional. I said, Ryan, you know why I know you're wrong? He's like, how? I said, if I call 100 people over here and ask 100 people, is it too soon to contact this guy? I guarantee you 100 people will agree with you. And that's how I know you're wrong. And see, how many of you got kids? Okay, just watch how many times a day you practice the word no with your kids. It's inbred to like teach. No, don't do that. That's a no. How many agree that counts as a no? Yeah. Don't touch that. Is it a no? Yeah. Little 3 or 4-year-old kid, hey, touch this, touch that, he wants to touch everything. Why? The kid's got reach, man. The kid's alive. He's more alive than the adult is now. He's interested in everything. Shit, what's that? Oh, what's this? Wow, man. Right? Check this out, man, right? And the mom's like, hey, stop it. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. Don't touch that. That's not yours. Put it down. Don't touch yourself. No, 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 no. And the next thing you grow up 30 years later, and what are you saying? No. No, don't do that. Don't touch that. It's not safe. Be careful. Drive careful. Walk careful. Be careful. Nothing comes to people that are careful. Nothing. Zero. Would you agree?
Now I've got some special bonus clips that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the Billionaire Mindset question of the day. I want to know, what was your single biggest takeaway from this video and your plan of action for the next week? Also, if you've already got your Billionaire Mindset Companion PDF calendar, get ready for another amazing video tomorrow. Or if you don't have it yet, you can get it for free in the first line of the description below. And if you're enjoying this Billionaire Mindset series, give me a hashtag Billionaire Mindset in the comments below so I can celebrate you. Most people are so afraid of losing that they don't even try. You'd rather stay average because going for greatness means you might fail. Adopt this mindset. It's better to know and to fail than not to know. All of your heroes failed on their path to success, and if you are unwilling to risk failure for greatness, you will stay on your exact same path that you're on right now. So I was recently faced with an impossible choice where I didn't know the outcome, where two people who I respected told me opposite bits of advice, and it was around splitting up my YouTube channel. I have had my YouTube channel, my main one, for over 10 years. It's crazy, 10 years of creating content. I got up to making 3 videos a day on my main channel. I get on a call with Matt Geelan, who's one of 4 people in the world who, if they gave me advice on YouTube, I would really strongly, deeply think about it. I respect him and 3 other people that much. And he told me, Evan, you need to split up your channel. Evan, doing 3 videos a day on the same channel hurts you, and you should split it up into multiple channels. That was an impossible choice. I mean, for me, it was scary. It was difficult. I don't know the outcome. So I asked some other friends of mine, somebody else in the top 4, and he says that is the biggest mistake you could make. Don't do it. It's a huge mistake for your channel. It'll hold you back. So now what do? There's 4 people in the world whose opinions I respect and trust on this one topic, and 2 of them are giving me exact opposite advice. What do? For me, the decision was easy. The action was difficult. It was tough, but we do tough things, right? We're entrepreneurs. Here's my decision-making process. I would rather know and fail than not know. Going my current course of making 3 videos a day on one channel, I know what that looks like. I'm liking my success, I'm liking my growth, but splitting up my channels and going down to 1 video a day on my main channel, I didn't know if that would work. And if I don't try, I'll never know. So even though one person I really respect tells me it's the biggest mistake of my life, it may be. It may be the worst decision that I ever make in my YouTube career, but I won't know unless I try. And I would rather live my life without regrets, knowing that I got the information instead of being afraid to act. And so I split it up. And listen, right now, it's actually not working. Right now, the views on my main channel are down. The subscribers on my main channel are down. The amount of money I make from my main channel is down. And my other channels like this one haven't grown enough to combat it, to replace it. But I'm still soldiering on. I'm still continuing down this path. Now, if it's a year and it's still the same thing, okay, maybe I have to go back to my old strategy, but at least I would know. And so you can look at that and say, well, you lost all that opportunity. Yeah, I made a mistake, but I would rather know and fail than not know. Because if you only take safe bets, if you only take the bets that you know you're gonna win at with 100% certainty, then you play small for life. Then you're only gonna take on the projects that there's 0 risk of failure at, which means you stay in this tiny circle. I don't wanna live in a tiny circle. I want to change the world. I want to have a huge impact that comes with a great deal of failure, just like all your heroes. So I'm living it right now. This video speaks to me and hopefully we come out on the other side, but if not, we'll go back to what we were doing because it's not fatal. So I have a 3-step process that I want you to follow right now to take some action and not just watch another video. Step number 1, what impossible choice is in front of you right now? What's a super difficult decision that you're trying to figure out right now where you don't know if this is gonna work or this is gonna work? People are telling you to do different things and you have uncertainty around it. What is that one choice for you? Number 2, which would you regret more if you don't do it? So look at your two options. I could do A or B. Which would you regret more if you don't do it? So for me, if I did not split up my channel, I would regret it. I would regret not knowing. I would regret not knowing, so I had to go off and do it. It made the decision easy. Doesn't mean that doing the steps is easy. Emotionally, it's very difficult, but the path was clear and that I had to go off and do it. So between your two choices, which one would you regret more if you don't do it? And number 3, how can you make it not fatal and limit the downside? So if you take that choice that you're afraid to do, that you might regret if you never try, how do you make it not fatal? So that if it totally goes to crap, if it's 0, you get no results, it's negative, you spend all this time on something that doesn't work out, how do you make it so it's not fatal for you? How do you limit the downside? I still have my main channel. It's not gonna go as well as potentially all these other channels, right? It'd be better if everything was combined, potentially, but I still have my main channel, right? Whatever choice is in front of you, how do you just get started? Don't go out and necessarily take on a huge loan, mortgage the house a second, third, and fourth time, right? Start with your energy, your hustle, your drive, your ambition. How do you make it so that you just get started, you limit the downside, and if it doesn't work out, it's not fatal. You can still move on with your life.
The biggest risk is not taking a risk at all. I love it. So many people are so afraid to follow their dreams, to have this big idea that they have that they want to go off and accomplish. We have this big vision for ourselves, and we're so afraid of making the wrong decision that we do nothing. That you see this big goal and you have 3, 4, 5 potential paths and you have limited resources, limited time, limited money, limited abilities, and you want to say, I need to make the perfect decision. Because if I make the wrong one, it all falls apart. And as a result, we get paralyzed by fear and we do nothing. And that's the biggest risk of all. That's when you see somebody else making tons of money off your ideas. That's when you fast forward 10 years and you still haven't done anything. You're still in the exact same position that you are now. Meanwhile, lots of people have taken that idea that you had and are crushing it. And so the way to get over it is to recognize that as soon as you get an idea, you need to find some small way to test it. And that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay, and that you're gonna figure it out along the way. Don't be naive like I was to think that you can create a business plan and it's gonna be the perfect business plan, you're gonna have all the answers figured out, and then you're just gonna execute that business plan. Because as soon as you finish writing your business plan and you get out into the world and you start testing your assumptions, you'll find out that you made a lot of mistakes, that a lot of what you thought would happen didn't happen. You couldn't predict the future. You couldn't predict how customers would react. You can't come up with the perfect plan just sitting in your apartment, sitting on your couch, going to the library. You have to actually get out and start talking to customers, test your assumptions. That was my biggest problem in my first business. I spent 3 months working on the perfect business plan, and then when I got out to market, I realized a lot of what I thought was gonna happen, a lot of what I thought what the reactions would be, is not what actually happened. And that set me behind. And so being attached to that perfect idea, understand that that doesn't exist. There is no perfect plan. There is no perfect idea. As soon as you get something in your head, as soon as you get an idea for something to do, then find some small way to get out and start testing it. Find some small way to get out and start seeing, are you getting yeses? Are you getting traction? Do you even enjoy this? A lot of times these big goals that we have for ourselves, when you get into it, you want to be a YouTuber, great. You start making videos, you're like, yeah, I don't really like that. Go figure that out as soon as possible. People wait years before they go out and try their first attempt at it, and then they realize, you know what, that wasn't for me. And so I strongly encourage you to, 1, as soon as you get an idea for something you want to test out, something that you think might work, find some immediate way to test it on a small scale. Don't take a big risk. Don't go mortgage your house. Don't go take out a giant loan. I hate spending money until I'm making money. Find some small way to get started. And then 2, use the fear of regret. Use that idea of that if I don't do anything, that in 60 years, you're going to look back in your life and say, I really wish that I took some action on it. I'll give you a concrete example of what I'm going through right now. With YouTube, I feel like this is my moment. I feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I have my window, however long it's gonna last. It could be 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. I gotta push as hard as I can. I feel like we're really hitting it. I think it's a great combination of everything that I love doing, my skill sets, my interests, my passion right now, to provide value to myself and to you guys. And so it's why I'm pushing hard. I'm making 3 videos a day. I go to my website. I had a shift where I said, you know what? I want to solve the world's biggest problem, untapped human potential. What does that look like? I don't know. When I first launched it, I had no idea. I deleted my entire website, threw up one picture, and that was my homepage. If you go right now, you'll see it's still a bunch of pictures. I add a little bit more meat to the bones, but I still don't know where it's going. I don't have all the answers around it. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I figure it out by doing, by testing, by having conversations. And so from a SEO perspective, my website sucks. But I wasn't interested in the direction I was going anymore. I switched. And so I had to find a way to get started. And so I did it myself. My website has now what I call the circle of potential, and all of those points you can click on it and dive a little bit deeper. Somebody made a comment when he clicked on the first version of my self-awareness button. He said, well, it's only promoting your stuff. It should have a wider range. You're right. I don't have the answer yet. I'm figuring it out. And so I don't let the fear of making mistakes prevent me from doing anything. Because if I waited until I had the whole thing figured out, what the perfect website would look like, I'd never launch it. And having a website that's not complete and building some momentum with it drives me to want to do more on it, drives me to want to figure out more details on it. And so some pages are more worked out than others, but all of them need a lot more work. And it just came from that initial idea, that initial thesis, that as soon as you have an idea for something, you find immediate ways to take action on it because the momentum is so important. The biggest risk of all is not taking any risk at all.
When do you quit? You quit when you don't love it anymore. If you quit now, but you still love it, you will regret that decision the rest of your life. You'll constantly wonder, what if I just gave it one more day, one more week, one more month? You might have to slow down and do something else to survive, but you have to keep going if you still love it. So I look at my early days as a YouTube creator, and you can go back on my channel and see how awkward I was and nervous I was. And my first video, I'm sitting down in a suit and a tie, and I'm sweating, and I'm trying to memorize my lines, and it took me all day to make one video. Most of my lines were me reading because I couldn't memorize the entire script, and I was so afraid of not having to be perfect with my lines. And so I read most of it and had B-roll on top of it. But still, it took me a whole day just to get some of those lines out on camera, like take after take after take after take after take. And when I started, on paper, it looked like a stupid idea. I had no video background. I'm introverted. It doesn't come across now, but I'm introverted. I don't like being the center of attention. I don't go and talk to people to introduce myself. I don't like the camera being on me. I don't like being in a spotlight. It doesn't make me feel amazing about myself. I don't crave it. I'd much rather be at home by myself, with my wife. That's super comfortable for me. That's easy. So when I started, it was just an experiment. And even though I wasn't very good at it, I just loved it. I don't know, I liked it. I'm a visual learner, and I think people are built to serve, right? And I struggled so much as an entrepreneur that I wish there was more content for entrepreneurs that was visual and that modeled success. Bill Gates saved my company, not me talking to him or him investing in my business, just his story, how he started. I applied, and that started growing my company. And I wish there were more resources telling the stories of successful, famous entrepreneurs that you could learn from. One, just get inspired to say, wow, look what they can do. But two, also to get specific ideas to help you grow your business. And it didn't exist. And so I thought, I'm going to go make it, right? Typical entrepreneur. Nothing exists in the market, so I'm going to go off and create it myself. And so it made me do all these things that I was afraid of, that I wasn't good at, that I didn't have natural talent at. And it took me 5 years to get to my first 7,000 subscribers, right? Think about that journey. Now, I wasn't doing it every day. I wasn't as hardcore committed. I was experimenting and playing with it a bunch before actually taking it seriously. But I loved it. Even now, I love it. Like, as much as I'm afraid to get in front of the camera or afraid to go and do a speech because I don't want to disappoint people, I still love it. I love it. I love serving. I love helping people. This is what I need to do. And so even though I wasn't seeing a lot of momentum or traction at the beginning, even though all this stuff on paper looked like it was against me and I should quit and I should go do something else, for whatever reason in my heart told me I can't quit now. I have to keep going. And just through sheer perseverance and adjusting and developing the skill set and getting better and becoming more skilled, I slowly got better. And now here we are. My main channel has over 2 million subscribers and 300 million views, and it's only because I didn't quit on my dreams when everybody else would have quit. And I want the same thing for you. If you still love the thing that you're doing, it may not make sense right now, It may not be practical right now. You don't know how it's all going to work out. Awesome. You have to keep going or you're going to regret it. Just quick story. I remember meeting a friend of mine in Orlando a number of years ago, just as I was about to start taking off. So maybe 5 years ago or so in Orlando. And he was telling me that he's going to be the next Gary Vee and that I'm going to go off and be the next big YouTuber and let's go build this thing and like cheer each other on. And he posted something maybe 2 years ago on his Instagram saying, I met Evan in Orlando, and he showed, posted the picture of us having a, Starbucks in Orlando. And I told him I was going to be the next Gary Vee, and he was going to go off and be the next big YouTuber. And Evan went off and did it, and I didn't do my part. He just didn't have enough momentum. He just start and stopped, and he didn't do it. And he has a lot more natural talent, charisma, energy than I do. I think we both have an equal level of kind of care and love and wanting to serve and help, but he was way more gifted naturally than me. The only difference is I just kept going. I loved it and I didn't want to quit on it, and now he regrets that he didn't take the action. Now he's off doing it. He's chasing his dreams down. He's back on the horse and creating more content and trying to be that next person, but he regrets not having hustled as much as I did over the 3-4 years between us meeting. And I don't want that for you. You've got a dream, energy, passion. You know you can give something great to the world. If you love it, you have to find a way to keep going. If you don't love it, quit immediately. Like, get out of that business if you hate it. If you love it and it just hasn't worked out yet, you have to keep going. Okay, so what's the 3-step process to know if you should quit and how to keep the momentum going on your dreams? Let's go. Step number 1 is make the big decisions in your life with your heart and the small ones with the head. Big decisions with the heart, small ones with the head. Here's the thing. Your head is designed to keep you safe. Your head only understands a world that currently exists. It's logical, it's practical, it's survival mode. It keeps you safe. It knows what already exists. The problem is your heart wants to create something new. Your heart is telling you to go off and do something that's never been done before. So the fact that you want to step outside what your parents have done and what your community does, what your family has done, is not safe, is not practical, is not logical. You want to create and burst something new. That's what entrepreneurs do. So often the big ideas that you have, your head and your heart they're not aligned. They're fighting. Your heart wants to do this thing. You love it. You know it's inside you. Like, I got to make this thing. But your head's saying, you can't do that. You don't have the schooling, education, resources, connections, money. You can't go off and do that. Go get the safe job, right? And so often the head wins out because we live in scarcity, but your heart knows you're capable of more and you're frustrated with your life. You have to make the big decisions in your life with your heart. We're not making some list of pros and cons. That's your head thinking. Don't do that. Big decisions with your heart. And then you use your head to help you figure out the plan. It's like your heart tells your head, heart, we're doing this. Head, we're doing this. Okay? No options. Now help me figure out. You're the smart one. Help me figure out how to actually make it happen. Big decisions in life with your heart. Small ones with the head. Number 2 is understand that your purpose comes from your pain. This is a key theme in my new book, Built to Serve. Your purpose comes from your pain. Your purpose is to help other people who currently are what you used to be. Think about what you struggled with, what you suffered through. There are so many people who are currently struggling with the exact same thing. You represent hope to them. You can help them. You can guide them. You can save them. But you have to be out there creating. So if the idea that you have, the dream that you have, is in service to the people who currently are who you used to be, and you're going to reach back and help them, you have to keep going. That's going to fill you up for life. I love helping entrepreneurs so much because I struggled so much as an entrepreneur. In my first business when I felt worthless. I love modeling success and teaching you guys about all these famous entrepreneurs and what they've done because that's how I got out of the hole that I was in, right? Bill Gates saved my first company. His story did, right? So that's all I've done now for the past 20 years of trying to now give back and help out other entrepreneurs. And so if your purpose in your business and what you want to create is coming from that pain point that you went through and you want to help others not suffer as much, you have to keep going because that's going to fill you up for the rest of your life. And number 3 is ask yourself, what would you do if money wasn't a problem? A lot of times we quit because money's a problem. And that is a practical reality of being an entrepreneur. Money is often a problem. You haven't figured out yet how to make it a success. You haven't figured out with my YouTube channel at the beginning. I didn't know how to make it a success. I wasn't making any money. I wasn't getting any views, no comments, no subscribers, right? You haven't figured out the path yet. But if money wasn't the problem, what would you do? Would you still be doing the same thing? This is what often separates the people who just have the maniacal commitment to keep going and have the momentum and energy sustained to keep going, where most logical, sane people would quit and give up because they just love the thing that they're doing so much. If the reason you're doing it is just chasing opportunity, you're gonna lose. You should quit. If you're just chasing opportunity because this year is the year of XYZ, right? Whatever product or service, if you're just chasing down an opportunity, then get out. Because you're gonna go up against people who love what they're doing, right? If it's you who's just chasing opportunity, going up against somebody who loves the thing, you're gonna lose. They're gonna beat you every time. You might have this small, tiny window of success, and then you have to hop to the next thing, hop to the next thing, and hop to the next thing, and never have any sustained success because you don't actually love the thing that you're doing. And you're gonna come home and be frustrated and angry and upset and never really fulfilled. So the reason that you're chasing down the thing, money's important. It's just not number one. It's gotta be in your top 5. But if you had all the money in the world, what would you spend your time doing? And then make sure that whatever business you're in right now is just a smaller version of what you would be doing, because that's the dream that you want to work towards. If you want to sign up for the entire Billionaire Mindset series for free and get the companion bonus PDF calendar, check the link right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.